Now, as I mentioned in part one, China's experiment with Hong Kong as a sort of chartered city um, is very interesting because, of course, they developed other economic zones such as in the southeast of China and developed road links and brought people from what was a peasant existence to modernity, or albeit under a communist regime that kills 1 million people of its own people every year. But that aside, it moved from a communist model or a feudalist model to a market model in that time. But as I said, there must be agrarian zones around the city which can develop um, the ability to feed the populations of the city and to give good rules and incentives, as John Locke put in with um, developing the acre system and the ability to buy more land for the successful inhabitants. Um, Now, America, of course, became successful because it had good rules and also because it had an influx of people. But the key challenge to Western civilization and the advanced world is the decrease in fertility of the advanced world and the increase of my immigration from the uh, undeveloped world. This is true in Japan in the first case and Europe and America in the second case. Now there is arguments for the reduction of our carbon footprint, which some people have made in extreme measures. In one woman uh, aborted a baby and got herself sterilised, uh, as I did a video on that. And that is on the extreme side of extinctionist cults, which are against or ideologies such as extreme environmentalism or uh, to reduce the human population. Or on the other hand, market fundamentalists who want to reduce our population by using market rules which prevent human beings gaining their full potential through psychology and other things and built-in redundancy in goods and services to fool us and change things because, of course, the invisible hand of the market is difficult to perceive rationally, and that is Thatcherism. Um, but good rules in the Western world can be taken from the chartered city idea in different zones where we could build cities in the Western world, in Europe, smart cities where the as Bill Ford said, the development of smart technology to prevent the 100-mile long traffic jams that we've seen in the chartered city areas in China developing, which took about 5 days to clear. We can develop a smart integrated transport system within Europe, which would get a lot of the waste of our system of and lost productivity and lost economic achievement, and people simply sitting in traffic jams. And of course, linking Britain together, especially from the north to the south, would help people with high-speed rail and air travel. Would cheap air travel would make it more possible for people to change the north-south divide. And I believe different divides are evident in Italy and in Germany as well, and other European countries, between rich zones where there are good rules and poor zones where the rules have stifled human development, such as or cultural traditions, such as the Italian mafia or the Sicilian mafia in Sicily, and in Milan there being good rules that developed through the Renaissance to in the city-states. So we're not talking about the breakup of nations through the development of chartered cities, but the enrichment of nations in partnerships with each other in chartered cities, and this would help link together Europe and the European Union. Also in America, there is a problem of secessionism from Mexican immigrants in the southwestern states, and chartered cities could help bridge the gap between Americans and Mexicans there on the borders towns. But there, I would make a warning about this, was because in the Roman Empire, particularly on the German frontier between the Romans and the Germans, there was attempts at bridging the gap because, of course, when I'm thinking of chartered cities, I'm of course thinking of the Romans because, of course, they didn't bring immigration to them. They brought cities to where the population was that needed a city. And I think maybe this, ironically, Paul Roma being called Rome in effect in his surname, has brought this idea to effect. Rome itself has started off as a city-state and then became a nation-state, then a continental empire, then could have developed itself into a nation-state if it had took in all the peoples that it conquered, whilst keeping its core population growing. And that's what I would like to see for the European Union. A core population of the Roman, Nordic and Celtic peoples, of which we are a synthesis of one race. We are a mix of races, of those three races in Europe, because of course the Romans helped bring everything together through transport, through a common law system, not to confuse with Anglo-Saxon common law, but a universal law system, and they built cities which were factories for turning non-Roman people into Romans. Thus, chartered cities could be a way to be factories to change people who are Africans into Westerners, as Africa used to be part of the Western world, in both the colonial era and the Roman era, and the medieval era, of course, because the Africans developed science during that time in Mali and Timbuktu, in terms of astronomy. But I'm getting off the point here. Having developed chartered cities in Europe, we can have smart, postmodern technology which we can then export to chartered cities in the third world. And thus, as the power of these chartered cities in the third world grows, they could thus be given more and more independence from their own governments and from the European Union itself. We would want to not develop a European empire in Africa, but European modelled nation states, whether those be, in the case of the Boer Republic, a majority European racially dominant country, because those people have been there since the 1600s, longer than the Americans have been a nation state, then in a constitutional republic. And we are really talking about constitutions here as being the founding of any technological add-ons that you can put in, like a modular system, and also the use of smart transport. Now, Eurasia itself could be seen, as the world's population grows, ironically, could be seen a massive implosion of its population, especially in Russia, where there are key factors where there's a growing Muslim dominance in the Russian army. At the same time, there are secessionist movements based mostly on Islam, or on the distance between Moscow and Vladivostok and Siberia, and also perhaps the implosion of China itself, and India, because of American pressure, military and capital pressure, or because the Americans' economy might implode itself. This all falters on August the 2nd, when the Americans will pay off their debt or not. So it will be interesting to see. But China, being an export-led nation, is captive to the United States in many ways, in George Friedman's view. But let's discuss this more in part 3. Thank you for listening.